Alright, today I'm working on a 2011 Subaru WRX hatchback. So I'm going to be doing the water pump, timing belt, the idler pulleys, and I'm going to do the radiator with lower and upper radiator hose and all sorts of fun things. So first thing we're going to have to do, we're going to have to drop down the splash shield on the bottom. I'll go ahead and show that. Alright, so we have the car lifted, jacking up points. You can hit the subframe, so you can lift up right here or right here. But right here is more reinforced. Since this car was lowered, I actually kind of lifted right here on this bolt. And you do the same thing for the other side. Jack stand points right there. Now, starting from the rear of the splash shield, we're going to take off one. They are all 12 millimeters, by the way. So 1, 2, 3. So I believe, yeah, there's just 3 bolts that are holding it. And then normally you would have a fastener clip right there. It would be right here. So you would have one right there. And then you could use the flathead screwdriver or flathead just to pop those off. And then here's the one on the passenger side, so same thing. We'll go ahead and pop this guy off with the flathead. Alright, so now that we have our splash shield taken off, right here on the passenger side, there's going to be a little petcock. So we're going to go ahead and loosen that. You're going to use a screwdriver. And this is how we're going to drain the coolant. And then we're going to go ahead and open up the radiator cap just to speed the flow of the process. So now we're going to go ahead and take off this coolant reservoir. So right here, you're just going to pinch this area. So this plastic, there's an inside piece that you just pinch so that this part comes right out. Just like that. And then this will be able to slide right up. Now you can just take off this hose. Now we're going to go ahead and take off the upper radiator hose. I'm going to try to take off everything all at once, so this is why I'm going to be doing it this route. So we're going to go ahead and just stick something in between this area and then clamp it down. So as a tip, I did put my my pliers through this radiator hose so I can get more of a grip, but make sure it's not crimping in between there. And then we're going to go ahead and take off these clamps right here on the reservoir. So then we're going to go ahead and take off the fan connector hose, or the fan connectors. Then we're going to go ahead and take off the lower radiator hose. Alright, so now at this point we're ready to take off the radiator. And we are going to take off these 2 radiator hold down supports. So they're both going to be 12, so one right here and one right there. We're going to go ahead and take off this cover. It's only one bolt that's holding it. And it's going to be 1 10 millimeter. Now we're going to go ahead and take off our alternator and power steering belt. Now just loosen it, not all the way. And then these are 12 millimeters, by the way. And then we're going to go ahead and loosen this bolt right here on the alternator so that the alternator drops. Alright, so since I can't take off this belt, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. Then we're going to go ahead and take off our plastic timing covers. Those are all going to be 10 millimeters, so it's pretty much the same thing on both sides. Then also, while you're taking out those 10 millimeter bolts, what's a very common problem for these timing covers is that the back bolts on the back of the timing cover, these guys tend to snap a lot. So I mean, worst case scenario, you might have to break off the timing cover and buy a new one, or you can just cut off the bolt from the head, and or grind off the head of the 10 mil. And then so the timing cover can slide off, and then you can glue these guys back on. I've done that before, but thank God it went pretty smooth. Alright, so basically what you want to do, it's kind of like top dead center, but you want to get the pistons in the middle of the bore. So you're going to keep rotating the crankshaft. Let me get that. So this notch is going to correspond with the notch behind the little timing cover. And then also right here, there's going to be two notches. You want those to correspond. And then same thing, there's going to be a notch right there. You want that to correspond with that notch. Now on the driver's side cams, pretty much the same thing. You're going to have your own timing marks. This timing mark's going to be slightly off. I mean, it's not like crazy, as long as you got your timing marks dead on, so you can see that. But what we're gonna go ahead and do, we're gonna go ahead and make our own timing marks with the belt. So we'll make one right here with the belt. You don't have to do it necessarily here. I'm just doing it there because of my conscience, and I'm gonna be very thorough and detailed about this. So even though your marks don't line up later on, don't worry about that. They do have a special tool to lock these gears in place. I'm going to do it without that because I know this guy will probably swing around as soon as I take off the belt. But again, I'm not worried about that because I'm going to make my own timing marks. Now, you're just going to keep rotating the cam or the crank until you get those marks lined up. So that's how you'll know you'll be at the top dead center for that. So we're gonna go ahead and take off the crankshaft pulley. Alright, so here's the channel lock chain. So you can actually get this from AutoZone. Here's the part number 77519 right there. I think that was like about 20 bucks or $29. So just like that, we got the bolt loosened, and then basically I had it resting right here, just under the bracket for the air pump. You can actually hold it by hand necessarily if you really wanted to, or you can keep letting it go until it gets onto the alternator bracket. And then the bolt was on there pretty tight because this is the first time that it is being taken off, so I had to get a little extra pipe just as a breaker bar, extended length. So we'll go ahead and again, we'll go ahead and put everything to top dead center, and then we'll rotate or center everything as needed. So now we'll go ahead and just take off our crank bolt, put this somewhere safe. Then we'll go ahead and just wiggle this out. And it should come off easy. Now if it doesn't come off easy, then it probably rusted itself on. So you can spray some penetrating oil and then just tap on each side. And you can kind of use the channel lock chain just as one, just to wiggle it back and forth. That'll help out. Now we're going to go ahead and take off this timing cover. So we're going to take off all these 10mm bolts. Oh yeah, oh, I'm sorry, yeah. My bad. I was thinking about something else. Alright, so pretty much all the bolts are going to be the same on this guy. Except right here. So there's going to be one different bolt. So make sure you don't get that one confused. So this bolt right here is going to be for the bottom left one. And then the ones with the bigger hole are obviously going to be these bolts. So all the other holes are going to be this. So now we have a pretty good access to our crankshaft, our timing belt. So we're going to replace all these pulleys and the water pump. We're going to go ahead and take off the clamp, the hose clamps that are back there. And yeah, that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and center this, find the mark. I'm going to clean this up and then I'm going to find the timing mark for it because I know it's off from the crankshaft. So I'll look right into that. So I double checked, I cleaned up this spot. So this one is top dead center corresponding with that. So first thing what we're going to go ahead and do is that we're going to take off these 10 mils. Alright, so right here, we're going to go on the back of the crank, sprocket. So right there, you'll see a little guide mark corresponding with this guide mark. Now we need to make sure it lines up with that guide mark. So again, we're going to go ahead and check up everything that corresponds with that notch. Those two semi-line up. It's not perfect. Let's see. Those two line up, so that's perfect right there. And then we're going to need to take off these Allens. And then it's going to be a 5mm. So right there we're pretty dead on. Get that a focus. But right here it shows that we're off. But we're just going to go ahead and remember, we'll go ahead and make our marks just on that. So we'll make sure those two notches that are lining up, those correspond again. And then right about there, those notches line up. So everything's actually dead on. So we're going to go ahead and make our new marks with our own whiteout. Alright, so now we got our marks. I did 2 on the crankshaft sprocket just because so I know for sure what those marks will mean. Now those marks mean something to me, but for someone else will be different. And then we went ahead and marked right back there, so because we know that this timing mark's going to line up with the crankshaft and there. And then for the other gear, I couldn't get the pen right back there, but that's fine because I made my mark right here. We're going to have to go ahead and take off that just so we can pull off the belt. I mean, we can take it off without it, but it's a lot more smoother. I believe we can just loosen it, but we don't have to take it off all the way. And then same thing for right here. It was kind of hard to see. So we have one mark, if it'll focus. So we have one mark lining up. So the one to the bottom right and then the one on the top left, those two are the ones that are marking up. So both lines aren't marking up. And then right there, we have our mark right there on that belt. And then same thing for right here. I made two marks just to know which camshaft I'm at. So you can see right there, I made a mark right there. And then same thing for the mark on the bottom cam. On both bottom cams, I went under the car and marked those. So if that'll help you out. So this cam I went under on the exhaust cams. So I marked that one under the car, and then I marked that one under the car. So now at this point, since we have our marks set, we can go ahead and take off everything. So pretty much what we're going to be using is 12, 10, and 14 here in this area. So now when we take this guy off, the cam is going to move. It might not move, it might. But most of the time I've worked on it and it does move. So we'll go ahead and start off with the tensioner. So you see how the cam gear moved? So I know right here our gears are all whacked out, but don't worry, we'll put this guy back all the way over here, and then same thing for this guy. We're going to go ahead and move it clockwise. So this one's going to go counterclockwise and this one's going to go clockwise. Again, we're going to have to go ahead and take off these bolts right here. I believe they're 8mm. If not, you can use a Phillips screwdriver just to take those off. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and take off the water pump. So first thing, I'm just going to show you on the new one. So we're going to go ahead and take off the hose clamps. We can do that last, just if it makes it more easier so that the so it's not a tight fitting. And I'm going to take off the thermostat housing too last. I'm going to take it off the car. But we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 10mm bolts. Then we got the 14mm bolt that's right there. So we're going to go ahead and take that off. And also make sure you have a catch pan under, because some fluid's going to come out too. So now we're going to go ahead and take off our remaining pulleys. Alright, so basically there was still coolant left over right here, so I just kind of got my finger, just swiped out whatever. If anything, if you have like an air tool, whatever, you can actually get whatever coolant that's kind of hanging out right there. If not, you can actually lower the car a little bit to where the coolant will kind of come off. But we're going to go ahead and clean up our area. Alright, so next thing what we're going to go ahead and do, we're just going to clean up our area with the brass brush. And then we just wipe down our area with brake cleaner. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and switch over our thermostat housing over to the next guy. And then also we're going to be switching over this seal too. We'll move that over to the new one. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and put our thermostat. Make sure you get something like this. Because if you get something with a 3-prong, it's going to hit against these guys. I didn't buy the parts, customer did, so we'll go ahead and seat that right in. Now you need to make sure that this sits as flush as possible, that there's no gaps. So you're going to want it to look like that. It's not seated in all the way. So that's how you want it to look. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean this just for reference. You can use a brass brush or steel brush. I'm going to use steel. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and bolt it right back down. Make sure you clean your surface for this area too. Alright, so now we're pretty much going to go for the install now. Alright, so now that we have this hose put on, and then we're going to go ahead and put on our gasket. There's nothing wrong with just putting on the gasket itself. I'm going to go ahead and put silicone on it, just a very, very thin coat. Now this is just reinsurance for myself. I just don't want to go back through this work, so I'm just going to put a silicone. I know some guys are going to talk smack on it, but again, do you really want to do this work if this were to fail? So we'll go ahead and do that, put the silicone on that. So the one with the imprinted, kind of like with the grooves on the outside, see that with the where it's being stamped from the inside, that's going to face towards it. Obviously it's a one-way thing, but just in case, so you can't mess this up. So now we're going to go ahead and put on our other tensioners. Now you need to make sure that the surface is cleaned up. I have came across this one time where another customer got a timing belt done, and then there was actually some debris right here on one of the pulleys, and it was causing it to wobble, which was causing it to make noise. So just want you guys to be assured of that. Clean up the area prior on putting on those. Now for the torque spec, it's 29 foot-pounds for the idler pulleys and the tensioner itself. And then these bolts were, I mean, you can do about like 8 foot-pounds to 11 foot-pounds, whatever you feel comfortable with. And then also, I forgot to mention, if your old seal stays on, inspect that too, because that could make a huge difference. I don't know if you saw the seal fell off, because the new tensioner will come with the seal. So remember, take off the old seal if it didn't come off. For this bolt, you're going to torque down to 22 foot-pounds. So I'll say torque down this one to, yeah, about 20, 25. I'm just afraid of it breaking. Or go by your own specs just to make sure, but do not do by 29 foot-pounds on this one. Just kind of feel like this one's going to snap, but these ones are for sure 29. It's just that, and Mitchell on Demand was saying that this was 29 too, but I don't feel like it's 29. Alright, so pretty much here we are with our old belt versus our new belt. So now we need to go back to the part where we made two dots right near each other. So we're going to use this one because that's where our crank's going to be at. Now make sure you inspect the belt, see if there's any arrows on it. I know this one came with its own marks, but again, we are using our marks. So we're going to go with the name facing down. That's going to be, this is going to be our face. That's going to be going towards the radiator. So we don't want it backwards. Okay, so now for our old belt, we're going to go ahead and mark the grooves. And you'll see why. So now we're going to go ahead and keep the belts together. So it doesn't matter where you start on the timing belt, as long as we have our grooves connected and that they don't move out of place. So now we're going to go ahead and make our own marks. And then basically we'll just keep it together. We'll slide it over just like that. Keep an eye on it. So now once we got everything marked, make sure that you double check your work. Go right over it. I know my thing didn't move, but still, you just want to go over and check your work. Rather be safe than sorry. But so far everything's lining up. So yeah, so our new belt is good to go. Now we're going to go ahead and make our marks on the belt. Alright, so now we're ready for the install. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and put on our timing belts. Alright, so we're going to get some clamps. No, it's a kind of mix of sort and it's not the same. You don't need the big ones, but I just can't find my little ones. But the little ones are like 59 cents at Harbor Freight. These work out pretty great for this type of job. Now we're just going to be using these for the ones on the cams on the right side. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and set this guy. Make sure that's there. So I went ahead and looped this guy right here. Now, pretty much this gear, there's 3 gears that are going to have the same one. Now, if you're having a hard time taking these off, or putting the belt and putting them back on, you can take these guys off. I'm just not doing it. I only loosen this guy, and I might need to loosen... So I might need to loosen that one too because of the lip, but I'm going to see if I can get away without doing that. If not, then you're going to have to take it off too as well. Or loosen it. So now we're going to go ahead and take off these caps. They're going to be 8 millimeters. Now remember, when you're taking this off, oil is going to come out. We're going to be using a 10 millimeter Allen's wrench. Or you can use this. For the Allen, for the ratchet, I'm going to be using this guy right here. Now make sure you only go one way with this. So make sure you do this one counterclockwise. So now we're going to go ahead and put this guy on, just so we can hold the belt in. Now for the adjustable wrench, I kind of put this socket right here just to hold this in place. So, I mean, not the adjustable wrench, I'm sorry. For the Allen key, just to sit on this socket, I'm using the deep socket. And then we're going to go ahead and move this guy. Now we're going to move this one clockwise. Okay, so we got this guy locked in, holding that down. We got this, our timing mark, dead on. Now we're going to go ahead and put in our tensioner, but before we do that, I'm going to move the crankshaft just a little bit because I have a little bit more extra play in the belt. So we just kind of want to relieve that stress so we can fit in the tensioner pretty easy. Alright, so pretty much going to go over everything. Now I know it kind of drives some of you crazy, but these two are not lining up. But my marks back there are not straight. So we're going to go ahead and back this up. We're going to go ahead and inspect our marks, make sure everything's dead on. Gonna go ahead and look right up there. That notch is lining up. It's just a tad bit off. It's because I still got to pull the grenade pin. I mean, same thing for right there, but I know my marks are dead on. This one's just a tad bit back. But this is what I mean when you make your own marks. You know you're not making any mistakes. Because it doesn't give you any second doubts. So we're good to go on that part. So we're going to go ahead and put on the cap, take off everything, take off these, take off that. So now we're going to go clockwise. Just make sure that nothing's in the way. Your belt's seated in properly. And then we're going to go ahead and pull the pin. Now you should make sure you have no slacks in any of the belts prior pulling the tensioner. And then you're just going to go ahead and rotate it. So no matter, I think it's probably going to take maybe 20, 30 times. It could take 10 times. The marks are never going to line up. It might take a while. You can keep doing it till it lines up. But I'm looking at my marks that I've made, and they are lining up right there. It's just a hair off, but I know it's dead on. And the same thing for right over here. So yeah, at this point we're pretty much ready to put on the timing cover. Sorry about being a little bit extra detailed about this, but I just want to make sure some of you guys understand this. And then when you want to take off this bolt, don't try to loosen it. Well, I already kind of put it on tight, but you need to kind of hammer it out. So you're going to end up hitting hitting it with the hammer, but I'm going to hit it at the tip. And then for our cam seal, we're going to go ahead and put this guy back on. You're going to make sure it's seated in properly. Now when you're going to put this guy back on, just kind of want to make sure there's like a hairline of room. And then also, that's the kind of gap you want to leave between the belt and the guide. So you want to make sure it's not right in against the belt. Just want a little tiny gap in there. Now also make sure that your seal is still intact. If not, you can actually use silicone on the inner side just to keep it in place. So now we're going to go ahead and put on our crankshaft. Make sure that this groove or the notch corresponds with the notch on the crankshaft. So now we're going to go ahead and torque this down. The first pass is going to be 33 foot-pounds. And then the second pass will be 133 foot-pounds. So got it torqued down to 133.3 foot-pounds. Now I'd say it would be a lot more easier to let it rest on this than to hold it. Now we're going to go ahead and put in our belt. Now I'm going to see if I can do this without the stretch tool. I'm going to see if I can just do this with a flathead screwdriver. And there you have it. We got the belt on just by using this flathead screwdriver. So I would start off right here on the inner side. I think first it caught on right here, and then I just worked my way around. Obviously I had to do it like 3 or 4 times. So each time I pried between I got the flathead and pried between the grooves, and just keep pushing and just holding this guy down with force and then letting it spin around until I get up top to where it starts a new groove until it lines into place. Now we'll go ahead and put on the alternator belt. So we're gonna have to switch this one around. Alright, so now we completed the procedure. Now we need to do the coolant bleed. I believe this one's just by letting it run until make sure you get hot air inside the cabin. Then once you get hot air, keep an eye on the temperature. Double check your coolant. Do not check it while the hose is hard. Top this guy off as needed since we emptied out this. And I'm going to fill it up from here, and I'm going to have that one open as I'm filling it up. So once the coolant starts coming out from here, then I'm going to go ahead and close this, and then I'm going to fill as needed from there. If this video helped you out, comment below, hit the thumbs up, and then hit that subscribe button for more upcoming videos. And thanks for watching.